Thank you for joining us on Merit Matters, a virtual series highlighting current events, industry experts, and local community engagement. I am your host, Tammy Birkland, Principal of Merit Construction, and today I will be discussing our latest campaign, Build What Matters, with Andrew Browne of Browne Vineyards, who just opened a wonderful tasting room in the Proctor district of our community.
I'm so excited to be here with you today, and I guess I would like to start more on your side. Maybe you just share a little bit with me about what's your story, how you personally got started in the wine industry, and then what's your role within your family vineyard?
That's great. I grew up in Spokane, other side of the state, and I went to the University of Washington. I'd actually spent a year, my freshman year, I went to University of Puget Sound. And so after I graduated from UW, I followed girlfriend at the time, ended up fiance, first wife. I'm on second marriage right now, but my first wife, I followed her to San Diego. And so I'm graduated. I graduated young. I graduated at 20. And so I got a job selling cellular phones. And this is back when they had the big brick phones and everything. And it, it was right when cellular was just starting out. And I was just hustling, making cold calls on companies and everything. And one day I made a call on a wine and spirits distributor. And I went in there and I did my features and benefits and all that stuff. And I got a call back the next day. I did sell them some phones, but I got a call back the next day and they said, "Hey, we really liked you and stuff. So would you mind coming in and interviewing for a job?" And I'm like, "Great, but I'm not 21 yet." And they said, "Well, when are you 21?" And I said, "A couple weeks." And they said, "Well, come in and interview and talk to us." And lo and behold, I got the job. So I didn't have you're turning 21. I didn't have this aspirational thing that I was going to be in the wine business forever. I thought I would do it for a couple years and then I would move on. I'd either go back to I'd go to law school or I'd go get an MBA. I would do something more and then I would go find my career path. But just all the elements just kept combining to have me keep pursuing what I did. And now we look back 30 years later and I stuck with it. And what were all those little things that made me get to where I was? I think if you have enough success and you have enough the people that mentor you at different stages through your business career, there were enough positives and wins that I kept going down that path. And I didn't have any major stumbles or anything that made me want to redirect or recorrect from that. And so it was one of those things where it just one thing led to the other. And I was able to get into a leadership role at a pretty young age. I got into management early, and then I was able to develop more of my skill set that way. And it kind of went from there. It's one of those. It fed upon itself. And once I got more than 20, I was in my late 20s when my partner gave me the leadership role out at Columbia Winery in Woodinville. And so I got to be a boss at a really young age and challenge myself and see how I could take those leadership skills and everything and develop people. And we've developed cultures. Everybody that's in the wine business makes wine. Everyone's going to do it their way and stuff. Where I think the success lies is once you've established what are your values, what are the values that you believe in, and then focus 100% on people. A grape doesn't grow itself, a wine doesn't make itself. It's all about people and it's all about culture. And if you can see that and build that, then you can do remarkable things. And we just do it in the wine business. But
Right.
It's all about, COVID should have knocked a lot of people on their rears in our business, and it did. Not at our company. We've worked on strengths, and we just keep pushing our people to do the best they can, and it pays off.
Yeah.
Now, you asked me, the other question you asked was about where I am in the family and stuff. the Browne family was actually founded because my grandfather died. And that it was, I'd been in the wine business for quite a while. I felt like our grapes were at a mature level and everything that we could make a wine, but it was more of an homage and an honor to my grandfather, to remember him in his passing, that I was able to ask my dad, my aunt, my grandmother if we could honor him and make some Cabernet that I felt was really good in barrel. And it started that tiny, and then it just took off. So I don't know if that answered your
Oh yeah,
question
no,
about.
it totally does, and that's huge, for us to understand how you guys got started, and um, more so, like, I loved what you were talking about with people, and I think that kind of goes across every industry. If
Yeah,
you invest in your people, and how you're talking about, like, identifying your values, making sure that the people that you bring on share those values with you. I always say that, you can teach somebody anything except character.
I
And
I agree.
so if you get the right people, and you're all in alignment with that, I think you, like, just like you said, you can do amazing things. Um,
Yeah.
so tell me maybe a little bit about your grandfather and how he inspired you. Like, what was the decision making? Like, how did you feel that it would honor him to make this the cab?
Yeah. So let me go back a little, and I'll try to do it quickly. But so William Bitner Browne, my grandfather, grows up in Springfield, Ohio. He's born before World War I. He lives his first 19 years there. He lives on a farm outside of town. Springfield's between Columbus and Dayton. Cornfields. It was just corn, and very Midwestern values and everything. And my grandfather goes to his local college, Wittenberg University, graduates with honors, and gets accepted to Harvard Law School. But instead of going to Harvard Law School in 1935, he gets on a boat and goes to the University of Bordeaux for a year. And to me, I think that starts showing the nuance of who he was and everything, and what established in his mind. So he goes to Bordeaux for a year, travels the country, meets lifelong friends, and then he goes back to Boston, does his 3 years there. Actually meets my grandmother. She was at Wellesley. She was an Ohio girl, different towns. They fall in love. They get married. They move to New York City, where he works for a law firm for a couple years, and then they decide that they want to have kids, but they don't want to raise their kids in New York City, so they move back to Springfield. And my dad's born, and then my aunt's born 1942. But the war's coming, and my grandfather gets recruited by the guy who ran the law firm in New York City, a guy named Bill Donovan. So Wild Bill Donovan is running what he was appointed by President Roosevelt to start the OSS, which is today's CIA. And so he recruits a bunch of the lawyers from the firm. And my grandfather, not only is he a lawyer, but my grandfather is fluent in French. He spent a year over there. So all the stars align for him. And so he goes and trains in Northern Virginia at a place called the Farm. They still call it the Farm within the CIA, and it's their training grounds. And then he gets stationed in London for the war years. But he does, I mean, my grandfather is Normandy D+2. My grandfather tells stories about the French farmers and the way they treated them under Nazi, when they were even the worst moments of time. My grandfather, the stories of that farmer would have taken his shirt off his back for us. And there was always bread and cheese and wine and those kind of stories. Just, I remember those. And that have been one of the catalysts that made me still continue to move in the path of the wine industry. Just remembering those stories.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather was at the liberation of Paris. He's got these great letters that he wrote my grandmother. He was the OSS officer that liberated the Buchenwald concentration camp. He ran the OSS in Austria for a year. And then when the war was over and everyone went back, the OSS was disbanded, but my grandfather worked for the Allied Allied forces in making sure that Nazis that were captured in Spain and Portugal were given due process after the war. So he led that for another year, and then finally went home, where he went back to his law practice in Springfield and worked there for another 60 years. But he was a citizen of the world, but he was a leader of the the greatest generation. And those things that he would talk to me as a kid and stuff, those values and everything of how you act in society and with your family and those things, those are the things that I was able to look back on, actually not via work, but when I was going through my divorce and I had two boys from that first marriage, and I was like, what would I leave my kids? What, not material, but if I could leave them something. And it got me to writing down on paper what our values were as a business. And they really orchestrated through my upbringing with my grandfather and stuff. And we ended up, we have these books that all of our people have. Our books are called Do Epic Shit, and they're on my business card and everything. And you've seen them around the tasting room. But we have 12 precepts. They're right there. There's simple things that are meaningful relationships, high payoff activities. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Have grit. Own the turd is what we mean by tell the truth. There's no room for lies. Be the best you want to be. Have fun. Customer nirvana. Things like that. Those are my words. But when we really boil them down to culturally, how do you act with your family, your friends, and your society and business? Those were Bitner's. And those are the things that were instilled in me as a kid. He was also he would send me letters, handwritten letters for my birthdays, for when I did a good job on something. That's another thing that really rings true for me is when you want to say thanks to somebody, I'm not a big fan of emails or a text. Let's take a note card out and let's write a handwritten note to somebody and say thank you or tell them good job, congratulations. So he was that foundation. I always like to use the thing that, like the three little pigs. You can build your house of straw, you can build your house with sticks, or you can build your house of stone and brick and mortar. And my grandfather gave me that foundation of that brick and mortar as a kid. And I was given an advantage that I think most people weren't, because I was able to grow and learn from him. So definitely in my life, he was my hero and never diminished. It just the way I viewed my grandfather never diminished. If anything, it just grew.
That's so incredible to have somebody that meaningful in your life that helped be, your compass, your
Yeah.
guide, and all of the ways that you were going to carry yourself for the rest of your life. And then I guess what we hope for, especially you hope now that you can be that for your boys, that you can share those values and those deep rooted commitments to the way that your grandfather was onto them.
Yeah. The family part, I think, is the family part. You're going to do that anyway. You want it. Most of us are going to focus. Family comes because is that foundation. It's that center point for most people. What I think has been interesting in my life is how far you can take that. It's the 6 degrees of separation. It can get to people that you meet in a tasting room that you never knew before. There's ways you can just work with people and treat people and make people feel good, and you can lift them up. To me, it's like the Oprah effect. You get on Oprah's show, and she instills this energy in you and this enthusiasm, and she gives you more zest for life, and she makes you feel more confident. I think we all have that ability and that capability of empowering other people, whether we've known them for years and they have your last name, or they work with you, or you just met them for the first time. That ability as human beings, we can do that.
Well, that's a tremendous gift. And I think, I don't know if everybody has that in them, but the fact that you're walking around wanting to do that not only to people you love, but to people that you're growing through employment, and then total strangers is a gift. I mean, that's a gift that you have and that you're willing to share with them, because I think, like you're saying, it makes the world a better place. If you can lift people up, why would you not choose that instead of making somebody's world harder?
Especially now. I
Oh
mean,
my God. Yeah.
this is a moment to run towards the fire instead of run away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. People need people right now for sure. So
That's right.
we're talking a little bit about your tasting room, that some of the opportunities that you have to meet people and impact people. So tell me about the new room in Tacoma. Share with me just kind of the philosophy around it, and what your hopes are for it.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, just as you learn over time and everything. A lot of the elements came together. I think the first thing, my wife Courtney and I made a decision that we were living in Seattle. We'd met in Seattle. She was from the peninsula. I was from Spokane. You know, kids from not the Seattle area. And one of the things that we decided when these little guys, and we wanted to give them an upbringing, we decided we didn't want to do it in the Seattle, where Seattle is right now, and where it's going to be for a little while. We wanted to bring a little bit more of community, and that's the word that really stuck with us, community. And we wanted to find joy in our life. We wanted to find joy on a continual basis. So um, we moved down to Gig Harbor, and we met the community of like Annie Wright in Tacoma, and our daughter's going to school there, and our son's going to First Presbyterian just a couple days a week. But we love the community, and so the word community was really important to us. And when we first got down here, we didn't have a strategy that we were going to have another tasting room. We had one in Seattle, we had one in Walla Walla. There wasn't that plan, but as we got to know more of the community, we then, and close to Annie Wright was that Proctor district. And I think that really became a driving force that was really just a cool evolution for us and the way we were thinking and everything. And if we could find something in that Proctor district, that would check a box for us, and a really serious box and an important box. That happened. We ended up building the house on Fox Island. We had a great designer from Tacoma, Heidi, and she was helping us with our house. And then we were like, well, she could help us with the tasting room. And then we started talking about, to me, it's just all those things. We could tell a story. We could tell my grandfather's story and our family story in not a big space. And so we just kind of, all those things kind of came together as you're kind of whiteboarding it and you're putting it up on the board. If you could do something, and if you were going to build something, how could you build something that you felt like every time you walked in there, it lifted you up and it made you feel strong? I've always been, I love the Howard Schultz book on talking about Starbucks and how, people, they live at home, and then they usually go to work, and then some people find church, some people find other places that are kind of that third place. And that's kind of what that Starbucks thing was that third elemental place that you could go to and you could be part of community. And that's how we felt about the tasting room in Proctor. And every time I was in there this morning, and every time I go in there, although it feels a little bit more like a wine shop right now and stuff, and we don't have the chairs and tables all up because we can't pour wine with everybody. But when that place is functioning the way it's supposed to in a non-COVID moment,
Mm-hmm.
it's such a feel-good place. The fire's going, people are in there, there's chatter, there's corks popping. How can you not love it? I
Yeah.
mean, the thing that I love is even to the little elements, like the bathrooms are cool. And I know that sounds so funny, but it's like, we did the bathrooms right. We didn't just finish them off with some white paint on the walls and stuff. No, if you're going to go into the bathroom, you're going to be like, this is a cool bathroom. This is like, I like the bathroom. So
Yeah.
to me, it's all those things when you could like say, if you're going to do something and you want to do it right, how do you do it? And that experience has, I'll tell you, it'll project me in business and everything for as long as I'm in business. It's a great example of, don't cut corners, do it right. Measure twice, cut once.
Right. No, I
it just feels really good. And hire great people and educate them and give them your culture and that sense of who we are. And then I think you can, the future looks good.
Yeah, you can feel it. There's no doubt in the tasting room. You come in there, there's a warmth. Your personality is everywhere. Your family is everywhere. The stories of your family, and they're moving, and it's amazing. I loved the stories about the two wines for your grandmothers, and I absolutely love there's a Chardonnay,
Yep.
and
There's
that.
the Dottie Chardonnay is for Bittner's wife. And then I have two like real heroes in my life, and the other grandmother, my mom's mom, Betty Elizabeth Pierce, but she for in our over the last 20 years she was Gigi because she was great grandmother, my older boys and stuff, and so in honor for her we did a bubbles for her. But her and Dottie, both grandmothers, were big time in my life.
Yeah. Well, you definitely made two amazing wines for them. I understood it took a little bit of extra time and that you would not stop until you had excellence, and they are absolutely delicious. So great.
Thanks. That in the past 20 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, we probably wouldn't have measured twice and cut once. We probably would have just been like, get something in the bottle.
Right.
And some of that is just where you evolve to. Sometimes we got to pay the bills, we got to keep the lights on. But as you evolve and stuff, and you can make maybe some decisions that they're not necessarily fiscally responsible for the business of the moment, but they're better for the long run of the business, you can make those decisions. So I'm not here to stand on some pulpit and say, you know, when everything's worked out, you can make whatever decisions you want. Business is hard, and sometimes you have to make decisions just to keep the business running and doing that. We've been fortunate enough that as we've built this, we can have a little bit more luxury of time and being able to do things that not necessarily every business can do.
Well, your tasting room is an experience. And so it's really important that you give that, like you're talking about business is hard, that's real. And so when I walk in there, I'm trying to escape that. I want to come in and be in a different environment and feel something completely different. And you've done that. It's just a really comfortable, welcoming place. I highly recommend that people check it out. And I know that it's going to be life-changing when everything gets back to normal and I can get back in there on a more regular basis. So I know that in talking with you today, you're talking a lot about relationships and investing in people. You're talking about your desire to grow people and lift people up. Um, what would you say? We're talking about our campaign right now is Build What Matters. And when we talk about that to us, that means maybe it's a great family, maybe it's a strong marriage, maybe it's a great work environment. Everybody has a different thing to them that means this is actually what matters. It's where you put your time and your talent and your treasure. And so I'm asking you, what would you say that you're doing now to build what matters?
Well, the things you just said, I would say yes, yes, yes. And you probably could have picked three other things and I would have said yes, yes, yes. I don't think I truly don't think there's one thing. Family, absolutely. Build what matters. Take the time. Great experience for me. I have kids when I'm pretty young and trying to build a career and everything, and was more of a barker, more of somebody that was, acted like a parent and an adult to a child. Man, these young kids that I've got now, when they're struggling or they're fighting over a toy or something, get down to their level and get down on a knee and tell them to take a deep breath and let's think about this and let's find something that works and just that level of, I'm not a patient person, so I'm not here to say that it's an easy thing to do, but when you do it right, oh my God, it lifts everybody up. Instead of a, a kid having to go to a timeout because you escalated the situation, when you can bring all those elements together and have it be a win-win for the kids, have it be a win for you because you've parented properly,
Yeah.
that to me is just an example. But whether we talk about family or we talk about work or we talk about community, that same approach, it's just I know it sounds so common sense, but it's the right approach and it's the right way to handle it. And but all those things are near and dear to my heart. That's why, again, we talked about the tasting room and like Proctor, that community, we're new to the community. It's important to us. We're new to the Annie Wright community. That's important to us. We're new to the community of Fox Island where we're living. That's important to us. We're in the wine business. Important. I don't. I guess the thing I would say is that, or what I've learned just from a personal standpoint, if it's not really important to you, you should probably decide, does that bring joy to me? And is that something that I want to long term do? Or maybe that thing needs to get checked off. I mean, there's these new books that are out, you know, don't, they have 4-letter words and stuff. Stop doing what you don't want to do, and all those things. I'm a big fan of, you got to really take a hard look in the mirror and say, is this something that I want to do? Is it important to me? And am I gonna put the time and the effort into it to do it to the level that I'm gonna be proud of myself when I look in the mirror? And if you do that, then I would then say jump in with both feet and do it. And again, it's not always going to work out. You're going to stumble. But as Muhammad Ali always said, you got to get up. The only way that you become a failure versus a winner is if you choose not to get back up. And if you have the grit to do that, then you can change people's lives, you can change your own life, and you can make the place a better place, this world and this community.
Absolutely. So tell me, what is your favorite brown wine and why?
That's a great question. Okay. What food are we having? What time of year is it? Is it brunch? Is it lunch? Is it dinner? Is it the end of the night? I mean, honestly, I think we've done a really cool job of kind of setting up a situation. So, well, we're having friends over for a brunch. Well, we're going to open up GG Sparkling.
Yeah.
I mean, that we're going to do that. End of the night, you just want one little sip of something else. Maybe you're a little bit buzzed up. Our port, just a little bit of that port with maybe a couple nuts or something just to finish it. Didn't feel like a big dessert. I'm gonna finish with the port, and then in between all those things, food groups. And I'm a big believer that food and wine go extremely well together. They lift the moment when you bring them both together. So depending on the food, whether you're in the meat class of lamb or something like that, or you're having a fish, or you're doing a vegetarian dish, or you're having an appetizer, I think you can get all over the place. Personally, for me, I really fell in love since we opened the tasting room with White Arrow. It's a Rhone white blend, and for being in the fall and everything, it had a little bit added. Just the characteristics of it and stuff were really exciting to me for fall. And then more with all this rain and everything, heartier reds. I'm big into the Cab Franc. Always love the Cabernets. I think Cabernet's king with who we are and where we'll go. It was the first wine that we made in honor of my grandfather, and we make a lot of them. We make a Red Mountain, and we've got the whole Spy Master series and everything. So Cabernet is, I'm just a huge fan of it. So that will be a cornerstone to who we are moving forward. But we're really into, I think Pinot Noir, summertime, beautiful salmon on the grill, gotta have Pinot Noir. So I didn't really give you an answer on what is that specific.
You love them all.
I do. I like kids or friends.
Yeah, you
They're all
have a
they
favorite.
all have a difference. If I'm watching the Seahawks game, it's something different than watching the Nutcracker.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I would agree. I've been in there a couple different times and had different flights, and I don't know how you would choose either. I usually end up going home with too many bottles because they're all delicious. So I love that. So
Oh, that's
so
great.
wrapping this thing up, I just want to I want to ask you right now, how can we support you and your the winery? Like, how can we get to you? How can obviously we can come in, because I know things are just a little bit different right now with COVID. So where can we find you, and how can we support you?
Well, I mean, first of all, you can find us in Proctor. So we have a physical place. If you're a regular grocery shopper at most grocery stores and stuff, you'll see Browne on the shelf. You'll find that we kind of have two different things. We have wines that we make specifically for the tasting rooms, which we have a lot of unique wines. I'd say we probably have 20 wines that you can't find at regular grocery, or
Right.
if you're in a restaurant by the glass. We have kind of a core lineup that we have that you'll find in those places. We got a great website that tells a lot of our stories and stuff. Browne Family Vineyards. I'm of the person. I like the personal touch. I like the people. So yeah, you can go to the website and everything, and you can do that. But it's easy. Call Browne Family. Reach out to me. 206-714-7177 is my mobile. And I could show you it, but I'm talking to you on it. Seriously, it's we just ran some in some wine publications. We ran an advertisement in it, and I put my phone number in there. I'm like, text me, call me if you have a question about the wine and everything. That's who we are. We want to. If you're not personal in the wine business, there's just too many wines out there.
Yeah.
You're gonna blow away, dust in the wind. So we have to be engaged with people that like wine and are passionate about it, because we want them to become part of our community and be part of where we're going to go into the future. I was on a call a couple of weeks ago with a number of people from the wine club, and the conversation was, what cool things do you think you're going to do? I think we're actually going to start doing blending at the different tasting rooms, where we'll have our winemaker John Freeman, send a bunch of wine in there, and we're going to blend out special little wines. Wine members are going to be able to come in, do the blend. We're going to send back the results to John, and we're going to go bottle 100 cases of that wine and only sell it in that tasting room. I mean, to me, that's where we've got to go in this, and get more personal and get people engaged, so they get that sense. And that's what wine's all about. We grow something, in our garden, and then we share the spoils at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I just can't recommend enough for people to come in and feel who you are through the tasting room. And I think the experience that you've created there, as well as Kirsten, she does an amazing job representing you. I think people will really enjoy it. And it's such a great location. So I hope that people listen to this and hear and know what an experience it is. And I can't wait to get back in there after COVID.
Well, Tammy, here's to you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you for
Absolute pleasure.
thanks for the time, and your questions they made me think, and they were of the moment, really spot on. At the end of all of this, it's about our interaction as human beings together, and hopefully, 1 + 1 = more than 2. And I think if we go with that kind of attitude, we're gonna live in a better place.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure to meet you and speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you.